Paula Pant, the host of the Afford Anything podcast, likes to answer questions her listeners send in. This is a special episode where she also has Joe Saul-Sehy from the Stacking Benjamins show join in the fun.
Hi, Paula. I love your podcast. This is Sherry, and I have a question about socially responsible funds. Do you have a good resource that compares what these funds screen for, their expenses, and their yields? Are there socially responsible index funds? I would be willing to take a little less profit if a fund stayed away from industries I'm not comfortable investing. Thank you.
Joe, you want to take that one?
I can, because, the place that I go to for any screening is always Morningstar. I mentioned it earlier with, I don't remember if it was Joe's question or for whose question.
Yeah, it was Joe's question.
Yeah, but Morningstar.com has two different parts. There's a free part that's available for everybody, and it gives you not just the performance versus whatever index it competes against. It'll rank things on a star ranking from 1 star to 5 stars. That can be a little dangerous. What I like better is it tells you what type of risk funds take. It tells you whether it's large, mid-size, small company stocks or bonds or whatever it might be. And it tells you how expensive it's going to be. So Morningstar also, for socially responsible funds, also screens to say how socially responsible it is. And, I'm not going to get that far into the weeds, Paula, but Morningstar.com, I think the free part is what you want. Whenever they always ask you to pay, and there's really nothing on Morningstar you need to pay for. Professionals may need to pay for Morningstar stuff if they're getting in the weeds. But when I was a professional, 99% of the time, I didn't use any of the professional stuff. I could use the free stuff, and I was just fine. So a few funds out there that I'll point to, exchange traded fund wise, iShares has, when we talked about iShares earlier, it's ticker symbol DSI. By the way, I'm not recommending any of these. I'm just kind of pointing out a few of the things that are available. That's a socially responsible exchange traded fund. The expense ratio, and it's going to be a lot higher than Vanguard, Paula. But in the big scheme of things, when you're doing a lot of this work, when you start applying screens, you start applying people's hands to the work and put more machines in it, guess what happens? It always becomes more expensive, right? Mm-hmm. When we look at, as an example, we look at emerging market funds where they're going to look at some of these not as liquid investment places. Emerging markets are always going to be way more expensive. So these type of funds are also more expensive. It's 0.5% for the iShares MSCI KLD 400 socially responsible. Flex Shares also just opened one. That's ticker symbol ESG. And you can check that out. Their expense ratio on that fund is 0.37. So that's a little cheaper. And then if you're working with a financial advisor, these are load funds, which means you pay an upfront fee to get them. So I'm not that excited about that. But if you work with a financial advisor, a lot of the time you can get around the loads because you're paying your financial advisor a fee instead. Calvert Funds is a fund family that's been around. They're probably one of the first families, Paula, that were doing socially responsible investing. Calvert Funds have a long history of doing that. And I'm looking at their flagship fund, the Calvert Equity Fund. They rate it 3 stars on a scale of 1 to 5, which is, average. And the expense ratio just over 1%, which for a mutual fund, it's pretty run-of-the-mill vanilla.
Okay, cool. All right, so Joe and I, just so the audience knows, we talked about this question a little bit behind the scenes. And I asked Joe to directly answer the question with specific fund recommendations. But I wanted to make a commentary. Actually, I wanted to make 2 comments. One is that it's tempting to try to lump things into these dualistic buckets of good and bad, right? Like this is socially responsible and this is not. But what does socially responsible mean to you? For example, if a company has great environmental practices, but they don't have great labor practices, are they socially responsible or not? Or vice versa. If they're fantastic labor practices, they're really good to their employees, but they create a lot of pollution and a lot of waste. What does that mean? And how do you measure a lot? And also, what are your feelings about tobacco companies? What are your feelings about companies that sell alcohol? What are your feelings about firearm companies? And does it matter if the firearm company produces, say, certain types of firearms, but not others. If they produce automatic weapons, but not hit. I mean, this is where we get into the weeds in terms of, we don't have two buckets of like good company, bad company. We have a spectrum of a lot of really hazy choices. And I guess the reluctance that I've always had around making a blanket statement about any type of socially responsible fund is that the companies represented within that fund may or may not have practices that align with your own values. Tobacco companies being a perfect example. I'm sure there are people who are listening to this podcast who have no problem investing in tobacco companies and who are smokers. And then there are probably also people who are smokers who do have a problem with it. And then there's people who, do you hear what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of murkiness here.
Yeah. Yeah, though, if somebody really feels strongly about lining up what they're doing with a socially responsible fund, I like what Sherry said. Is that a lot of the time the returns just aren't there. And she's very comfortable with that if it gets closer to what she believes. So I totally agree with you, Paula. You're probably not going to find, without creating your own fund, exactly a fund that completely aligns with your goals. But some of these, they call them SRI, socially responsible investing accounts and funds and ETFs, might be what she's looking for.
Yeah. And that is the other piece of it, right? Like when I go to like Sprouts Farmers Market, for example, I know that I'm generally supporting, or when I buy 7th Generation, or when I buy Method dish soap, I know that I'm generally supporting an idea that I like.
When I, as an example, when I drink 2 bottles of wine on a Friday night, I'm supporting grape farmers. That is, it's a pure investment. I keep telling Cheryl, I'm like, I'm not drunk, I'm helping. Somehow that doesn't go over well, Paula.
Oh, man. Okay, I think actually that says it all. I'm going to leave it there.
That's why I don't get to do that very often. So anyway.
Do you buy those bottles at the Sizzler?
That's right. Yeah, they're plastic and they come with their own little paper bag around them. It's really neat.
Oh, man. And do you drive to the Sizzler burning gas while you go there, or do you take like a bicycle made entirely out of bamboo so that you didn't have to manufacture it?
My socially responsible bicycle. Right. No. It's
using
all,
the polluting aluminum and carbon fiber.
It's all the El Camino. I take the El Camino down to the Sizzler with my hair gel and no.
And your wide tooth comb.
That's right. And my boombox on my shoulder. Yeah.
Your solar powered boombox.
So bad.
Hey, did you enjoy this excerpt from the Afford Anything podcast? Then click to download our free ebook, Escape. You'll be taken to a page where you can enter your email for immediate access to everything you need to know about escaping the 9-to-5 grind to live life on your terms. And you can also subscribe with one simple click to get alerted when new videos are uploaded.